At the beginning of the 20th century, fashion operated on a strict hierarchy of dress. Morning, afternoon, and evening each required their own silhouette, materials, and codes of behavior. Clothing signaled not only the time of day, but also social position, marital status, and the formality of the setting. Within this system, the tea dress occupied a distinct and carefully defined role. You're watching Cultured Elegance. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and consider becoming a channel member today. By the early 20th century, afternoon tea had become an expected social observance, governed by custom rather than convenience. Established in the mid-19th century and fully embedded in elite life by the early 1900s, it unfolded between luncheon and dinner, most often around 4 o'clock. Women received guests in drawing rooms and conservatories, surrounded by porcelain tea services, upholstered interiors, and softened daylight filtered through lace curtains. Invitations marked informal calls, musical afternoons, charitable committees, and carefully managed introductions within one circle. Though less ceremonial than evening dress, the occasion demanded visible refinement. Appearance signaled cultivation, leisure, and social awareness. Within this interior, socially charged space, the tea dress found its purpose. Emerging in the late 19th century and flourishing between 1901 and 1914, it was designed specifically for these transitional afternoon hours. Unlike structured walking suits that relied on rigid corsetry and tailored precision, the tea dress introduced fluidity appropriate to the domestic sphere. It preserved elegance while softening formality, aligning with a setting that was private yet observed. By the Edwardian period, tea dresses had evolved into garments of remarkable delicacy and craftsmanship. They were typically made from soft fabrics such as silk chiffon, lace, fine cotton voile, or lightweight crepe. These materials allowed the dress to fall in gentle, fluid lines rather than the sharply structured shapes seen in tailored daywear. The silhouette followed the broader Edwardian ideal, the S-curve figure, with a softly defined bust, a narrow waist, and a skirt that flowed outward in controlled volume. Tea dresses achieved this shape through lighter construction and more flexible underlayers. Many tea dresses were intended to be worn without a tightly laced corset, particularly within the privacy of the home. Some featured looser waists, empire lines, or softly gathered bodices that emphasized comfort while preserving refinement. Decoration played a central role. Tea dresses often incorporated layers of lace insertion, fine pin tucks, hand embroidery, ribbon threading, and delicate ruffles or flounces. The emphasis remained on surface detail and softness. Color choices reinforced this atmosphere. White and pale tones were especially popular, including ivory, blush, pale blue, lavender, and rose. These shades harmonized with light-filled interiors and reinforced associations with afternoon rituals and cultivated leisure. Tea dresses also reflected a growing interest in historical and artistic influence. Many designs drew inspiration from 18th century robe à la française silhouettes, classical drapery, pre-Raphaelite aesthetics, and medieval revival forms. Designers and clients alike embraced romantic flowing lines. Major couture houses played a decisive role in shaping the tea dress during the Edwardian years. The House of Worth, still the most authoritative name in Paris couture at the turn of the century, produced tea gowns that combined historical reference with modern technique. Many designs echoed 18th century court dress through Watteau pleats, soft trains, and elaborate lace overlays, reinforcing couture's link to lineage and tradition. Jeanne Paquin, one of the most influential female couturiers of the era, advanced a lighter, more fluid interpretation. Active throughout the early 1900s, Paquin favored softened silhouettes, restrained ornament, and pale color palettes, helping move fashionable dress away from heavy formality and toward elegance suited to interior life. Couture became particularly associated with tea gowns through their exceptional mastery of lace, metallic embroidery, and layered transparency. Their designs frequently incorporated antique lace and Eastern-inspired motifs, reflecting both technical virtuosity and an increasingly international aesthetic. The Couture atelier trained many future designers, and their tea dresses set standards for surface complexity and fluid movement. Lucille, the couture house of Lady Duff Gordon, transformed the tea dress into an instrument of mood and fantasy. Active in Paris and London in the early 1900s, Lucille introduced sheer chiffon layers, pastel palettes, and poetic naming conventions, treating the tea gown as an emotional experience rather than a purely functional garment. Her designs appealed to aristocratic and theatrical clients who valued atmosphere, softness, and a sense of escape within the domestic interior. Doucet offered a more restrained approach. His tea dresses emphasized fluid line, material quality, and subtle draping over overt decoration. Often constructed in silk mousseline or fine lace, Doucet's gowns aligned with intellectual elegance and artistic modernism. His support of contemporary art and literature positioned his work within a broader cultural movement that shaped elite taste during the Edwardian period. Beyond Paris, tea dresses were also influenced by British dressmakers and the aesthetic dress movement. These influences emphasized medieval revival references, handcrafted surface detail, and looser construction, reinforcing the association of the tea dress with interior life. The tea dress intersected directly with changing attitudes toward women's lives. As social rules gradually relaxed and the concept of the new woman emerged, clothing began to reflect a growing desire for mobility and ease. While the tea dress remained closely tied to wealth and domestic privilege, its softer construction anticipated the looser silhouettes that would dominate fashion after the First World War. By the 1910s, the influence of designers such as Paul Poiret further softened the silhouette. Waistlines rose, corsetry weakened, and distinctions between indoor and outdoor dress began to dissolve. After the war, rigid time-of-day dress codes faded entirely as women entered the workforce in greater numbers, and fashion shifted toward practicality and modernity. The tea dress, as a distinct category, gradually disappeared, yet its influence endured. Its emphasis on softness, fluid fabrics, decorative surfaces, and relaxed construction echoed through the 1920s in bias-cut gowns and returned repeatedly in later Romantic Revival styles throughout the 20th century. Tea dresses represent a moment when fashion moved between structure and softness, public expectation, and private life, captured in layers of lace, silk, and light. If you enjoyed this visual study of Edwardian tea dresses, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who loves fashion history. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which dress was your favorite, and why? Thank you for watching.